So, in our last show, part one, I was talking with Amy Loudermilk, who is a talent acquisition guru and branding expert, about everything you need to know about your personal branding. So, on today's show, we'll be talking about job search and resumes. I'm your host, Ms. Entertainment. Let's talk about it. This is your girl, Ms. Entertainment. I am your host for Let's Talk About It. So, welcome to my world. We're getting ready to start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Well, hello, Miss Amy. Thank you for coming back and sharing your knowledge. Episode 2. So I am so excited to be talking about resume writing and job search. So you ready to jump in it?
I am so ready. I have so much good stuff for you today.
All right, so let's jump right into it. Resume. Oh my God, they are so overwhelming. So where do you start when you're talking about writing a great resume or a good resume? Where do you start?
Absolutely. The first thing I tell everyone to do is start a daily diary and literally track everything that you do on a daily basis. Everything from answering the phone, responding to an email, going to a client meeting, whatever it is, write down every single thing and track it for a week. Then I want you to think about things that you do on a not so regular basis, monthly, quarterly, things that you maybe only do once or twice a year. These are things like reporting, presentations. Maybe if you're a people manager, it could be mid-year or end-of-year performance reviews, goal setting. So for example, if you're in finance and accounting, for example, everyone knows that you're going to do a month-end close 3 to 4 days out of every month. But what else are you doing? So really, this is a good exercise to make you think about what are you actually doing on a day-to-day basis, longer term, over that particular month, the quarter, and those year or annual events. Then the next step is to really look at and eliminate any redundancies. So if you've had one job your whole life, for example, myself being in recruiting, I can only say that I find talent so many ways, so many times. So what else did you do for that particular employer that is unique? And that way you're not just seeing find talent for a 20-year career. You're actually seeing what was unique about the talent I was finding for that particular employer, whether it's industry, discipline, etc. The next tip, and this is one of my favorites, and I actually use this in my own personal practice, Google your own job. Go and see what jobs are out there that are posted that's doing the job that you do today. Look at the verbiage they're using. Look at that job description, because there may be things that you're doing that you've forgotten about. And you're like, wow, I do that. Or, hey, I do that one. But that's not represented in my list. If it's not, add it in. Make sure that you are including those things that are going to be important, because if you start to see a pattern of requirements for that job, then you know those are things that you're going to want to highlight in your own experience. If you like their verbiage better, then use it. Obviously, you don't want to just plagiarize, but we're also not talking about poetry. We're talking about a job description, right? So if you like what they say in terms of what the job does every day, tweak it, kind of make it a little bit of your own, but definitely make sure that you're picking up any of those little nuggets. Also, make sure that what you're saying is actionable. Is it actionable in tone versus what you have? So you really want to use action verbs. Indeed has a really great link, which I think that we're going to include along with this podcast today, 139 action words to help you get the job. And so these are words like created, produced, developed, designed. And what I love about this particular article within Indeed is it actually breaks it down into different industry as well. So whether it's customer service or engineering or sales, it gives you action verbs related to that particular type of work. The next piece is use data to tell your story. Make sure that you've gathered and tracked your data. More and more companies, they want to see numbers, right? That really helps tell the story of what you accomplished in the job. Even if you are a waitress, almost all restaurants today use some form of point of sale. You can go to your manager and say, what are my number of sales? What's my average ticket dollar amount, and include that in your resume, because especially if you were a waitress, that is going to make you stand out. Also, if you're in sales and marketing, put in that you managed a $3 million or a $300 million book of business. If you're a talent booker, use those names to draw attention to yourself. You know, if you booked, Ellen DeGeneres or President Trump, or Denzel Washington, maybe it was the Jonas Brothers. Use whatever status may be in that particular name for that particular field and draw attention out to that. If you are in recruiting like myself, what was your time to fill? What number of jobs did you work on? And then again, most critical is if you are looking for remote jobs, which we've kind of geared this conversation a little towards, make sure that you are including your experience working from home and remote working.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What if you have one of those job titles that's kind of niche for that particular company? What would be the way of trying to make sure that you use all the right words to show what you was doing, even though it doesn't have the actual, I guess, industry title?
Absolutely. And that is a really tricky thing because a lot of companies really do specialize. The other thing, to your point, Teresa, is leveling, because what is a manager at one company that is a very large organization might be a director or even an AVP or a VP in other organizations, given the size. So again, this is where I think Googling kind of your job. You can even Google in direct quote responsibilities and look at what other job titles are out there for that particular role, and focus more on the skills of what you're doing in the day-to-day job than you are focused on the title. That definitely is going to help. Also, one point I want to make, if you're pivoting, this ties right into what you just said. If you're pivoting and you have no experience, right? Highlight what you have been doing that relates. If you've been a stay-at-home parent for the last 5 years, or maybe just the last 5 months during COVID, talk about things that you've done maybe in your household, project management, budgeting, planning, logistics. Those are things that are really important in almost any job out there today, regardless of industry or discipline. And then also highlight things that you've been doing to educate yourself and develop skills in that particular field.
There are several different styles of resumes. What is your recommendation? What is a good one? What is one that we should use, or is there one that we shouldn't use? What are your thoughts?
So obviously, with anything else, it's definitely subjective. And as we go through our session today, we're going to talk about some should I's, and we're definitely going to talk about some do's and don'ts of inclusion. But in terms of just style and formatting, there are really two ways. One is chronological, where you're starting with your most recent employment and you're working backwards. But think about, is your most recent job relevant? So, for example, maybe you were a developer and you were laid off during COVID and you picked up a job in retail. You would want to list your development job if you're applying for other developer roles. Secondly, is functional. You want to lean on your abilities. This is where you're calling out your accomplishments, the abilities that you do have versus particular work experience with an employer. This is the great type of resume formatting you want to use if you're applying for a pivot or if you're applying for a stretch role. One thing I want to caution everybody with is keep in mind there is a difference between a stretch and a split. So, for example, if you are a waitress, it's absolutely reasonable to think that you would apply for a customer service manager job. You may not have direct leadership experience, but that particular job, you may need enough of those skills that that would be a nice role for you to grow into. And this functional resume allows you to show where you have the aptitude to move into it. But that same waitress should not be applying to jobs that is a director of national accounts. That would be an entire split. And so there's a definite difference between a stretch and a split. By the same token, if you were a developer, you could certainly look at moving into information security, maybe into a DevOps type of role or security engineer type of role, but you definitely would not have the expectation that you would be the CISO and be qualified for that type of role.
Okay. So what are sections that must be there, you must have in your resume?
This is such a great one because it's so much debate around the resume, right? And one of the number one mistakes that I don't see people do is include their contact information. I'm going to say that just a little bit louder for the people in the back. Include your contact info. Even if the rest of that page, by some manner of hooey that happens, if the rest of the page was blank, if I know you applied for this role and I'm seriously looking for candidates and I have your contact information, I can reach out to you and you can send me that resume. But if I don't have a way to contact you, I don't have a way to find out if you're the candidate for the job or not. So definitely make sure that you include that contact information. Make sure that you include links to your work. If you're a developer, make sure that you're showing your GitHub. If you're a creator, make sure that you're giving your Vizio link, your portfolio, your YouTube. Definitely make sure that you want to give that recruiter, the hiring manager, decision makers a way to find out a little bit more about you and continue the story that your resume starts. Okay?
Okay.
Second thing, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, finish.
Yeah, the second thing I was going to say is a clear objective. It doesn't need to be lengthy, but as a recruiter, I definitely love to see it. And I think hiring managers do too. It can be just one sentence, but it really states your intent on what you're looking for. And it should not be generic. You should not say, I'm looking for a job in sales. It should be, I want to be an account executive of bop, bop, bop. And that's the way that you really want to put that out there. The next thing is really when you're looking at your past employment, call out what was contract work versus full-time employment. And if you worked with Accenture at Google, state it that way. This is particularly important if you have been a consultant in your past and maybe your job history is 10 jobs to other candidates 1 or 2 jobs. By calling out it was a contract role, it automatically lets that recruiter know that you have had job changes, right? kind of validates why there may have been frequency in job changing because you were in consultant work, which often is shorter term projects. It also eliminates the need for you to include a cover letter or to call that out into a cover letter. Again, we talked earlier about active language. Again, making sure that you use words like designed, developed, created, managed, led, organized, those type of things. Also, think about SEO. Think about keywords that are in a job description that help you find that job, and make sure that those words are spelled out into your resume as well. Another important piece, even more so over education, training and certifications. So education is becoming less and less important in a lot of jobs today, especially around technology. An MBA is not necessarily important depending on the discipline you're in. For finance and accounting, yes. For technology, not necessarily. A lot of employers are really looking for, what are you doing in your spare time? What are you playing with, tinkering with? Where are you volunteering? But also, how are you furthering your personal growth and development? Are you a member of organizations, and do you have those certifications? So for example, if you're in InfoSec, I want to see your CISSP, or that you have a certified ethical hacking certification. If you're a developer, I want to know what tools and languages you're touching. If you're in finance, I want to see a CPA. If you're a lawyer, I want to see your Juris Doctorate. That's where those differentiations come in between education and certification, but definitely show what you are doing to further yourself.
Okay. So what are things you should not include? Because like if you're saying, like if you're using a chronological type resume and you've been working for a while, so like some seasoned people, is there a cutoff time that you should only use? Or just let me know, what are some of the things you should not do?
Absolutely. So in terms of should nots, we definitely want to stay away from things like references available. Do I include my references? Is always a really big question that I get. No, you don't want to do that. It's implied. And most applications ask for that information. And it goes without saying, again, that implied emphasis here. If a company wants your references, they're going to ask for it. What you would want to do instead is use that real estate to include your LinkedIn profile and ask for endorsements. So some of the best endorsements that you can ask for, there's really kind of a rule of thumb of fours. Look at a peer, look at a manager, look at a next level, and look at a client. So here's a little bit of dish. The most weight is going to be placed on a manager and a client. And when you're in a service-based role, tons of weight's going to be placed on what that client said about you. If you don't have endorsements, or you're looking to add to them in preparation for a job search, give them a list of your accomplishments specific to their endorsement. Coach them on what you would like them to say. Ask them to say these specific things, obviously, if they're comfortable with it. It's okay to talk about a specific project if it aligns with your job search. So for example, I don't want to say Teresa Edwards is a great person to work with. That's subjective to me, Amy. Instead, I want to say Teresa Edwards always assisted other people. She mentored junior people on the team. She delivered training on this particular subject. I know in her spare time, she was working on this podcast or this production. That gets really, really specific. Do you see the difference there in how the conversation goes?
Definitely.
Yeah, so we want to steer away from subjective and get into the specifics. But talking about subjectivity, the great age-old debate, should my resume be one page? Well, it depends. Does it tell the full story? Okay. So specific to your question about someone that's really seasoned in their experience, I have seen cases, especially where they've been with one employer for a very long time. The resume could still be chronological, but instead of just going this job title and these bullet points, it combines chronological with functional. And so what they actually do is list their job title and dates, and then they have a block of bullet points that cover their entire career with that particular employer.
Oh,
And
okay.
so, yeah, so visually it kind of looks a little bit like a blend. But again, going back to my very early example of myself being in recruiting, I'm always looking for talent. I've had, 10 or 15 jobs in my 25-year career. I can't say I looked for talent only one way, right? I can't say it over and over and over. So that kind of blend of the chronological and functional might work for me. Also, an age-old debate is cover letter, to include or not include. Now, I have discussed this topic ad nauseum with my peers, with hiring managers, and here's the real dish on a cover letter. It is 100% subjective. Some people love them, some people don't, some people look at them, some people don't. Here's what I will say about a cover letter. The cover letter should tell the story and give context to your resume. It should cover things like sponsorship. It should cover gaps in employment. If you're re-entering the workplace, give some context around those things. But if you say it, you want to make sure that you mean it. So definitely include those things and the story that your resume does not tell, because again, it's more date, experience, or ability oriented.
Okay. So let me go back a little bit on the endorsement side. So,
Correct.
um, if you are the endorser, because I've had someone to reach out and ask for an endorsement, but it's like, I don't know you,
Mhm.
so are people really putting value in the endorsement, even though I couldn't give her an endorsement because I really didn't know her work ethic.
Mhm.
We served and on a actual um on a board, but I don't know her work ethic, so I couldn't, with ethics, give her actual endorsement. So if people are giving all these endorsements, are they really, weigh heavy and when employees are looking?
Yep. So, one, good for you for being true to yourself, because I'm in the same camp as you, and I don't believe in giving a referral or an endorsement for someone that I don't know their work. And again, I think that there's a difference between um, saying, I know this person, and there's a difference between saying, I know this person and I can stake this on their work abilities. And I think when you're talking about, let's say, specific to LinkedIn, and someone being able to say, this person has this skill, checking some boxes and saying, Teresa endorsed Amy for these things is very different than Teresa writing out actual sentence structures that says, I worked with Amy on this job. As a hiring manager, she produced these many candidates in this amount of time. It led us to a very quick decision. She influenced and guided us along the way. Bop, bop, bop. That is a very different um, type of reference, an endorsement, if you will, than someone just checking a box. And as a recruiter, I'm not looking at who checked boxes. I'm looking at who had specific words to say about that candidate.
Got it. Okay. Now with COVID, a lot of folks have, lost their jobs
Mm-hmm.
and things get a little desperate. So, and I've been there, I've been on that side too before where
Mm-hmm.
you just need that paycheck. And
Yes.
sometimes I struggle with at that time, should I just apply for everything or should I, still be selective in what I apply for?
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts around that?
Absolutely not. Not. Do not apply for everything. And here's why, little inside scoop here. Companies track your applications. Almost every single larger organization today uses some form of online application, and it tracks how many jobs that you've applied to. It would be better for the recruiter, the hiring manager, whoever it is that is looking at the information when they pull up your application, that you've applied for 3 roles that are very specific and tied to your objective, tied to your resume, tied to the job that you're applying for versus 100. Because I will tell you, and this is specific to my most recent ATS that I've been using. When I look at candidates' applications, if they applied to 100 jobs or more, I can't even see what they've applied to. I get a little flag at the bottom with an exclamation point that says, this candidate has applied to 100 jobs or more. It takes away your credibility. When it comes to
Wow.
job seeking, you want to show your uniqueness, your subject matter expert, your experience for that role. How can you do that when you're not serious about your search? And that's exactly what 100 applications say. I'm not serious. I'm throwing spaghetti at the wall. I'm waiting to see what sticks. I get being desperate. I get being unemployed. Go get a job at Kohl's, go to McDonald's, go to the gas station, whatever you need to do to get income coming in so that you are not put in that position of desperation to apply for everything.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. Is there anything else that we need to know of building a great resume?
I do have a couple of parting thoughts here. And these are just, again, things that hiring managers look at. These are things that recruiters look at, and they're really important that I see candidates not doing on a daily basis. Spell check, spell check, spell check. Edit, edit, edit. Make sure, again, you're looking for those action words. Reducing redundancy. Also, make sure that you're putting that resume in front of people and asking for feedback. So let's say that you're applying for a job, even within your own organization, that is the step up. Maybe you're going from a developer into a senior developer. Take your resume to your current manager and ask them for feedback and say, based on this resume, am I a candidate that you would hire? Would this put me in the top 5 candidates you might look at for that role? What should I emphasize? What should I de-emphasize? What should I remove altogether? So ask for that feedback. All someone can say is no, but they never get an opportunity to say yes if you don't ask.
Now, is that not dangerous? Because they was like, well, why do you want to know? What are you trying to leave? What are you doing?
It can be, but in this example, I led with, if you're looking for a job in your own organization and you're looking to take a step up. Now, we know that's definitely not always the case. However, if you are doing some of the things we're going to talk about when we get into job search, you should have mentors, you should have supporters and cheerleaders that can act in place of that manager to give you that feedback.
Okay,
And
because
I
some managers, they don't want you to leave, period.
absolutely. I do have 2 more little pieces of tea that I want to spill out for you here. We talked earlier about putting that resume in chronological order. And I think I mentioned, if you do not know specific dates, then don't put them. Simply use a month and a year. But one thing that you can do to speed along the entire process, go ahead and pull your old W-2s, your 1099s, your pay stubs, whatever you need that might get you those specific dates. Because if and when you get the job, if you can supply those things on day 1 to your recruiter, to the talent coordinator, or to the background check company, that's going to help you get through a background check in 1 to 2 days versus 1 to 2 weeks. And that's really critical and important, is getting in that door quickly, especially if you're in a situation where you do need that paycheck coming in quickly. The second piece is, when you do get a resume that you're happy with, always save it and attach it as a PDF. And if you're working in a system where it will not let you attach a resume, but it wants you to copy and paste, leave that formatting aside. Take that resume, put it in a all left justified alignment, save it as a plain text, and then copy and paste it in. Save the design work and the photos and all the fancy frills and things for people that are creatives and that are in design. That's what I want to see on those resumes. But for everybody else, keep it simple, keep it in a clean format, keep it structured. And again, make sure to spell check and edit. If you've got things lined up and bullet pointed, make sure they're all lined up and bullet pointed.
Okay, so, and all that is great information, but if I'm still not confident in myself and my ability, do you recommend going to an agency that specializes in creating resumes?
Absolutely. First of all, there's a wealth of resources right at your fingertips. I've included a couple links that I provided today that I think will go out with this podcast, that will send people to some specifics. One of them is Indeed. They have a great library of templates and examples. There's also the 10 Deadly Sins of Resume Writing that's out there by Squawk Fox. It kind of follows along with some of the things that I've talked about today, some of it in a little bit more detail. I think it's an excellent article. But if you just, as you said, are unsure, you're not feeling confident, there are a lot of people out there that do resume writing, and they will absolutely help you for a small fee. If you're being misplaced from a job, a lot of times companies will partner with outside vendors like Lee Hecht Harrison, and they actually have specialists, and it is their job to help you be best prepared for a new job. And they actually offer that service for free. So definitely look into those resources. And again, check things like Facebook Marketplace, Nextdoor. I often see people reaching out for help in my own neighborhood, especially during COVID, where they needed to write a resume. They had not done one in 25 years. They had no clue where to start. And someone like myself said, hey, my work's a little bit slow. I've got an hour I can give you on Thursday afternoon. I'd love to help you. So tap into all those free resources as well.
Nice, nice. All right, so let's pivot a little bit. So we got all our tools and our tips on having that best resume. I got my resume in hand. I'm ready to rock and roll. I want my job. But what do you recommend? How do we get that best job? Any tools that we should be looking at to get that right job for me?
Absolutely. I've got a ton of meat for you today around the job search. And I know that you're excited. You've got this resume. I'm looking at my accomplishments, so I'm feeling good and pumped up. Girl, I'm ready to do this. But what I need you to do is stop and pause. And we need to go right back to square one, just like in our resume search where we did an inventory of what we do on a daily basis. Now we need to stop and do an inventory about what do we really want to do. It starts with being prepared and researching. So take that inventory of what are things that are really important to me in my job I do today, things that I would never want to do again, things that I want to do every day going forward. What industry has jobs like the one I want or the one I'm doing? What company is that? But I also need you to be really reflective and be very real about not only the job you want to do, but where do you want to do it? Am I open to relocation in my state, in my region, nationally, globally? Is that highlighted in my cover letter and my resume? And be very real. Honey, we would all love to work beachside. But if it means your commute is 3.5 hours, is that a reasonable expectation? The next thing, right? Bummer, I know. But here's the reality, you need to plan your radius. Do a test drive in the morning, in the evening. Can you really work at that company's location and still pick up your kids, make dinner, get to the game, get homework, and actually get at least 5 to 6 hours of sleep every night? Because if you're like me, I'm only 24 miles from my job, but my average commute is 2 hours each way. If you're going to be stressed out because of the traffic, either coming into the office or going home in the evening, will you be a top performer? No. You're really setting yourself up for less than success, right? So you definitely want to check out things like that. And these are things that people don't often think about in their job search at all. So the really important things, it's not necessarily a deal breaker if your commute might be a little bit longer or you have obligations that you need to meet on a particular time, but just make that little mental note to yourself that if you get into the job screen in the interview, you're asking about flexibility in work times. Also, get very real about your salary expectations. Know what they are in the market. And we're going to get more in depth with this when we talk about phone screening and interview in part 3 of our Let's Talk About It series. But start to be thinking about that. Again, if your commute is going to be 2 hours and you have a vehicle that is not really reliable, are you going to need to upgrade your vehicle? What salary is going to allow you to have a car payment? So think about those small little things like that that play into it. One big thing I cannot emphasize enough is if you say it, mean it. So specifically, I'm talking about being open to relocating and being open to relocating on your own dollar. Do your homework. Know how much a U-Haul is. Research affordable housing in the area you want to live based on your current budget. Don't think I'm going to get this job and I'm going to get a 10K pay increase and I'm going to have that extra bank. At the end of the day, that $10,000 is about $2 more an hour. It's not going to impact your way of life that much over the course of the year. So think about, can I afford to live there on what I'm making today? Okay. And then that will also help you kind of drive your salary expectations. But be ready, because companies are posting jobs with the normal expectation that they would like to fill it within 60 to 90 days. So pack up those off-season clothes, the books you're not reading, the dishes you only use at Christmas. Box them, put them away so that you are on the ready, because nothing is worse than finding the perfect job as a potential candidate, and as an employer finding the perfect candidate and then having to wait 2 months because they need to relocate. Go ahead and do your research on, what is it going to cost me if I need to break a lease? Get your logistics together for childcare and pet care if they call you. Can I hop on a plane and fly to their location to interview within 5 days if they call me? So those are important little factors that make big impacts in our decision making about what jobs we take and don't take. But people often don't think about it until they get the job, or they're getting an offer for a job, when they really need to be thinking about it day one in their job search.
Got it. So if I take that time to really assess me and not just throwing spaghetti at the wall and see what lands. And I found that job. It looks like it's perfect and everything. It looked like all that. And I'm give a real life example of a past company where the job looked like it was promising, and it was promised the upward mobility and blah blah blah. But when I got accepted the job. 2 days in there, I knew that wasn't the right place to be because of the culture. What are your recommendations on how? Because I guess at my age, that that makes a difference. It's not all about the dollars, and making it where I can have some sanity at the job. You know.
Absolutely. So, two key pieces that are really important that you touched on there. We talked about this in session one. What's your brand? What are you passionate about? What are your values? What's your mission statement? Check your brand. Is it in line with your job search? And then once you find that job in that company, check their brand, right? Um, Go to their website. Most importantly, if they're a smaller company that's part of a larger, that's part of a larger, that's part of a larger, go all those generations back to that parent company. And what is their mission statement? What is their policy? What is their alignment? And does that come in under what you're personally looking for? Also, one important thing about job searching is the importance of outreach and networking. And not only are you going to be looking to people, and we're going to talk about that, I think, after this, but um, it's okay to reach out to people that are in that job today, people that are maybe a level above that job, and say, I'm really interested in learning about this particular job in this particular organization. Can you give me feedback? Can you talk to me about what it's like to work there? And I would encourage you to pick somebody that's less than a year with the company and pick somebody that's 5+ years with the company. So you're getting different perspectives on somebody that is brand new coming in that may have a fresher take on if I had only known this, versus somebody that's a little bit more seasoned, that's been there for a while, that's going to have a very different experience.
Okay, so that's a great idea. Shit, I didn't think of that. So, like using like LinkedIn, and what do you think about services like Glassdoor? Because sometimes
Absolutely.
you can look at some people disgruntled. I guess you just have to kind of weed through some of that and just pick the best place. But I guess if you get on like for instance Glassdoor, you get a lot of people saying the same thing. That's probably a red flag.
Absolutely. You definitely want to pay attention to it. The nice thing about what people put on Glassdoor is they can say what their role was and how long they were with the company. If somebody was with the company for 6 weeks, you're not going to weight their feedback as high as somebody that was there for 6 years, right? So you do have to take everything with a grain of salt, but look at everything that they have available. Look at their press releases, do an extensive Google search, get on their social media pages and search for not only what they're saying, but what are people in the organization saying and saying about them. The other thing to do is take advantage of companies that are doing live chats. So, for example, Lockheed Martin used to do a live chat every hour. They had business hours on their website. And you could actually chat with a recruiter live on a certain day at a certain time with them. The same thing, CNN does a monthly Twitter chat. And they have someone in the business that's talking about how they got their job, what they're looking for. But lots of companies are doing these type of things. If you're going to be going to a conference or a career fair, advertise in advance that you're going to be going there, because we actually, as recruiters, start searching and sourcing for candidates that might be attending an event we're going to be at 3 to 6 months in advance. So when you book your ticket to Grace Hopper, throw it out there on your LinkedIn, throw it on your social media, because we are looking for it. And then when you get to those events, a lot of times you think that an employer is limited to just 1 or 2 people in the booth if it's a smaller company, or 50 people in the booth if you're a Target or an Amazon or a Salesforce. The reality is, especially for really large conferences, I'm going to choose Grace Hopper as my example since I mentioned that. Employers actually send anywhere from 2 to 200 people to attend that event. Not all of them are in the booth. They're actually in sessions looking for people that are raising their hands, that are asking for questions. If you go by a booth and you're handing off your resume or you've submitted for a role, ask them, is there anyone here today that I can talk to about this position? Do you have folks here on site doing interviews at the event? Are you scheduling phone screens with managers back in the office? So I might actually talk to someone in the next 2 days and come back and follow up with you in 3. So don't be afraid to ask for those things.
Okay, cool. That is a lot of information. Is
I
there
got a lot more for you, so
well,
buckle up.
so
Where do you
that's
want
what I'm
me to
getting ready to
start?
ask you. What else do you have for us?
So a couple of other things that are really important around outreach and networking. Obviously, we mentioned virtual career fairs. We mentioned social media sites, PR, that type of thing. But LinkedIn is really a great resource. Think about specialized groups within LinkedIn as well. Think about industry trade groups like WESIS for women in cybersecurity, or women in engineering. Think about open source groups if you use Drupal in your day to day. Grace Hopper, think about meetups, social media, churches, and also Slack channels. So, for example, in the Atlanta market for technology, there's a Slack channel called 404, which is an Atlanta area code. And there are tons of jobs that are posted on that all the time. By the same token, for creatives, there's a website called like the Hot List, and it's all kinds of creative jobs, and those can be freelance, they could be part-time work, and they could be full-time employment. Women Who Code has their own Slack channel. Make sure that you're looking at those venues. Also, don't be afraid to reach out to talent acquisition, some type of recruiting, or even an HR business partner, because a lot of times they may know where gaps are on the team that you may be able to fill. But what I want to caution folks with is a really big do not. Do not send your resume to someone at that company, in particularly talent acquisition, and say, here's my resume. I've done blah, blah, blah. Can you tell me what job is open? Can you take a look and see where I would fit in your organization? No, I
Yeah,
really
I can
can't do
figure that's
that.
a no, because like, hey, if you can do this, you can look for yourself.
Absolutely. I'm not here to find you the job. I'm here to find talent for my employer. I would love for us to come to an intersection of that, but you have to do a little bit of work. And please do not be in finance and ask me the question when my LinkedIn clearly says I'm in technology. I don't know. And I'm not geared to help you if you haven't done your own homework. Try the approach of, hey, Amy, I see that you are in IT and I've applied for this particular senior developer role. Can you assist me in getting in front of the right person or getting seen? Are you handling this role? Can you give me any kind of insight and data that may help me further my own search? But show me that you've done some legwork. And then again, as I highlighted before, don't be afraid to reach out to somebody that's kind of doing the job today, or that maybe has done the job for that employer in the past. And one thing that people always ask is, like, where do I go to look for a job? The number one place you can go is start with your network. Tell everybody you know that you're looking for a new job. Now, I say everyone you know within reason, because again, a lot of folks get nervous about their current employer. So you may want to kind of keep that card close to the vest. But start with your mother, start with your hairstylist, you know, my mother's brother's postman's cousin's barber, right? That is your network. Start there, because honestly, word of mouth is still the best case scenario for hiring, especially in really small companies, because they don't have a lot of the resources to post jobs, and those jobs will get filled because it saves them time and money to go with a referral than it does to actually post it out. So if you're a customer service job and you want to work for, you know, that mom and pop plumbing shop that is, 20 minutes from home, network yourself with the people that work there, because that job is not going to get posted in most scenarios. Make sure that you turn on your LinkedIn notification that you're open to being contacted. Now, they have a brand new feature. Can't say that I'm a big fan of it, but it puts an actual frame around your photo that lets everyone know that you're job seeking. Sometimes you want to keep that job search on the DL, but there is a button that you can put that just allows people to know that you're open, and it's not anything that's visible to anyone else. But what it does do is places you in environments to be seen by people that are looking for candidates with your expertise. Okay. But it doesn't advertise it the same way as that frame does. Also, since we've been highlighting remote work, I wanted to call out a couple of really great job sites for that. So there's Flex Jobs. What I will caution you about Flex Jobs is that it has little flags, and really make sure that you check the legend to know what those mean, because it could be a telecommuting or remote job, but they still want the candidate based in that state. And if you'll remember a little tidbit I gave in session 1, employers don't always have tax capabilities to pay someone in another state outside of where they work. And so that may be a reason why they're looking for somebody that's local to the state, even though you may never report to an office. Okay, so get familiar with the legend there. But Flex Jobs is a really great one. They have over 4,000 employers that advertise about 40,000 jobs right now. Some of these are going to be fee-based, and their fees can range anywhere from $4 for a week's access to $50 for a year access. But again, if you think about most job salaries today, $50 is going to be anywhere from a half hour to maybe 3 or 4 hours of work. That is a very small price to pay if it means it accelerates your job search and gets you working faster. Hence, you've got money coming in sooner. Also, these sites give you a 30-day guarantee that you're satisfied with their service. Set that on your calendar when you register, so that if you are not feeling happy, you're not feeling like it's a fruitful tool for you, you can cancel that subscription before that 30-day is up and not get caught into an auto renewal that bills your credit card. There's a couple of other great ones. There is Remote OK. Just know they've got about 800,000 users already on their site, so you will be one of many. We Work Remote, that's another one. And obviously we are seeing uprising, Teresa, with lots of sites like this because of COVID.
Okay, gotcha.
Absolutely. I do have a couple of more really good points for you if you think we've got time to squeeze them in.
Go right ahead. That is a lot, though, because my head's spinning, but that's a lot.
Okay.
But
I know it's a lot, but that's why you brought me here to talk about this, right?
That's right. Great information.
I'm absolutely kind of giving you knowledge that's certainly out there and searchable, but I'm also trying to give knowledge about things that you don't necessarily think about, and things that really frustrate a recruiter and kind of make us think twice about, candidates. The other thing, track your jobs. So when you do apply to a position, right click it, see if you can actually save that job description to a folder for that particular company. Or if you can't, can you screenshot it? do a snippet, whatever you need to do, because there is nothing worse than calling someone and saying, hey, I'm, Amy, I'm with so and so company, I'm calling you about such and such job, and you have absolutely no idea, and you go, what job description was that? Calling me for? So those are things that you really want to be cautious of, because it definitely sounds so much better for that conversation to say, Teresa, thank you so much for giving me a call about this marketing role. Can you remind me, is that the one that was geared in the consumer marketing group, or was that the biz dev position? So again, see how the conversation, just small little tweaks, show that you're prepared, that you have an interest. Because if you tell me what job was that, what you're calling with who, that tells me you're throwing spaghetti at the wall. You're not that serious about your job search. And you may be very serious, and I may be catching you at an off moment, but you want to be prepared as much as possible. We talked about researching company culture. That's definitely important. And then finally, again, a last couple of points that I want to just highlight about what we talked about. Cut and paste with that plain text resume. Be as close as possible with your specific dates, because again, background checks, call your past employer if you have to get those specific dates. If you don't want calls to your current employer, when you are applying for a job and it puts you into an employment portal where you have to create a login and a password, they have a small little box where you enter in employment that says, I grant permission to call this employer or not. If it's a not, mark it a not, because the reality is either that company will have to contact them or you will to verify employment should you get the job. But that is, days, weeks, or even months down the road. Answer questions truthfully. Don't try to bunk the system. Don't think that leaving something blank is a way to bypass it, especially when it comes to salary. Because a lot of people say, well, I don't want to put my salary in there because it might rule me out. If it rules you out, that's okay. It's saving you time and the company time, and it may very well rule you in. But leaving it blank is not a guarantee that you're going to get a call, because many of these systems automatically rule you out if you don't answer every question, or you don't answer it the way that company marks in their system it should be answered. So keep that in mind.
Good to know.
Absolutely. 3 more points to get us out of here and get us ready for part 3. And that is, this is a full-time job. Looking for a job can be a full-time job. So set goals for yourself. Set a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day goal. Be aggressive or relaxed on those goals depending on your needs. But it can be as simple as, I'm going to apply to 5 jobs a day, or I'm going to spend an hour on my daily commute on the train to looking for jobs. And then you can grow that goal as grandiose and aggressive as you need to, but start somewhere with a goal. Follow up. Do not apply and pray that you're going to be seen. Be active in your outreach and your network, but again, make sure you're being specific and that you're reaching out to the appropriate party. Be gracious and thankful for any advice or forward on that you get. And last, give yourself grace and patience, because it does take time. And it's very hard to apply for a job we're really excited about. We got that hot resume. We can't wait to get in there like gangbusters. We can't wait to be seen. And we're just crickets, crickets, crickets. We're waiting to hear something. So give yourself and the company patience to get through all the applicants and respond to you. And I'm going to leave you there. And I think that sets us up perfect for our part 3 about phone screening and interviewing, and let everybody soak in and process everything we talked about today.
Yeah, we got a lot. That is a lot, but great, great information. So yes, thank you again for spilling the tea and giving us all this information. I can't wait for the part 3, the interview.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was another great show. I want to thank Miss Amy Loudermilk, which is a talent acquisition guru and branding expert. She's always giving us some great tips and tools for our toolbox. So if you have any questions, hit me up at info@terradoneent.com. That's info@terradoneent.com, and I will definitely hit you back. Stay abreast for our next parts. Until next time, salute.